All right, welcome everyone to episode 74 of the Gretsch Afternoon Drum Break. I didn't want my guest here, Mr. Brandon Toews, to be off screen. I wanted him to be on screen so that I could give him an interview, our great introduction here. He is the content director at Drumeo, and an amazing drummer who has covered 175 Rush tunes, has looked at bands such as Tool, Rush, delved into jazz and my goodness, Max Roach, Art Blakey, Elvin Jones. This guy, and I found out that he has just turned 25 years old, and that made me want to practice more. So I'm so excited. I've been following his career for the last few years, and me finding out that he was a Gretsch artist, I couldn't be more happier for this young man, an incredible drummer and a great educator and a great Gretsch artist. Please welcome for episode 74, Mr. Brandon Toews.
Thank you. Appreciate that. What an intro. I don't know what I'm supposed to say after that.
Thank you, everyone. Good night. No, that's
I have to say this is super weird being on the other end being interviewed, because usually I'm the one interviewing you.
Yeah. I've been on a couple of podcasts and it's bizarre. It's weird. It's like you want to take over the interview.
Exactly.
And by all means, please talk about, this is a nice conversation. I'm going to ask you some questions and we're going to have a good chat about Gretsch drums, about Drumeo, about music, about your life, your career, where it's going, the development. But I want you to do the majority of the talking. So let's actually start right now from the present. And first of all, again, congrats on becoming a Gretsch drum artist.
Thank you.
It's pretty wild, man, being part of the family. And what does that mean to you? And how long was that in the works for?
Yeah, that's a great question. I remember, I'm sure we'll get even deeper into this, but I remember when I was a kid and I was saving up for my first dream drum kit. And I was, at that point, brands don't mean a lot to you. You kind of know what you grew up with. And I do remember when I was maybe 12 years old coming across some of the, I think it was the 125th anniversary or something with gold hardware. I remember seeing these kits, and I didn't actually end up going with one when I was younger, but when I was in university, a friend of mine had bought a 4-piece Gretsch Brooklyn kit. And that was the first kind of high-end Gretsch kit I had ever played. I had played the Catalinas that were beaten to the ground in the practice rooms, and that's kind of all I knew from a playing standpoint. But a friend of mine had the Brooklyn kit, and I used that on one of my recitals in my third year. And that was one of the best-sounding drum kits I had ever played. And pretty much from that moment on, I knew that the next kit was going to be a Gretsch kit. So a lot of the artists and the drummers and the bands that I had been listening to pretty much through my whole life, a lot of those people had been playing Gretsch drums. And back then I didn't know what people were playing really. But you start to familiarize yourself with the sound that you're hearing on records and that the drums that you're seeing in these videos. And it turns out that a lot of those were Gretsch drums. So it's funny how that kind of all comes full circle, but I'm super stoked and honored to be part of the family. So yeah, I'm pretty stoked.
Well, it's no surprise, and I imagine with the exposure and all the great work that you folks do at Drumeo, you could have literally probably had your choice of what you wanted to play. And we're super stoked that you chose, the greatest drum family, and just such a versatile drum. I mean, they can sound like the broadcaster kit here can sound like a recording custom kit with thicker heads. It can sound big and fat with coated ambassadors and tune them up. They sound like traditional Gretsch drums. That's what I have found, and they look great. And just the whole family thing, and Fred and Dinah, and go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, at some point I'll have to head out to the factory when I'm out east. I mean, I've talked to a bunch of people, but haven't actually seen the operation. But yeah, I'd love to. It's an honor.
You got to go. I'm planning on doing a little visit for this show and do a little biopic or a little film, the whole operation. My friend Nicholas Lucero, great drummer from New Mexico, great supporter
Nice.
of the show. He wants to go there with his crew, bring some cameras and film it. Not unlike what you guys do, go to the different factories. But that'd be really even cooler if you go there.
Yeah, man.
And we go there at the same time.
We'll have to go together, man.
Can you imagine how insane? They'll be like, "Is that your dad?"
No, we're just drummers.
Yeah, you'll love it. It's my face hurt from the 45-minute or hour tour that I had from Paul Cooper, and it was great. So, man,
that's awesome.
So what drum kits, snare drums, what Gretsch drums do you own now?
Yeah, great question. So like I said, my first exposure was the Catalinas in the Brooklyn. The beginning of COVID. So Anthony McKelly is a good friend of mine. I know he's been on here.
My buddy.
And we had been talking online and stuff, but we met at the Drumeo Festival in 2020, which was, I believe, the last drum event that happened before everything shut down. And I remember we were walking around Vancouver and we hung out at some of the clinics and stuff. And I'm like, man, I really want it. I want a Gretsch kit. I play the one at the studio, but I want to have one that I can actually use for myself. So I ended up going with a broadcaster kit in Blue Sparkle, and it's in Heritage build. So it's all the centered lugs, long tension rods, with the updated rail mount. And I just love it. So that's the kit that I believe I have 10 drums that are going to be done this week to match that kit. So it'll be a full shell bank of Blue Sparkle broadcasters. So that's like my personal kit. That's what I love using. Then in 2021, in January, something I've always wanted to do since I was a kid was restore a vintage kit. So like you mentioned, I'm a huge fan of Art Blakey, Elvin Jones, Max, Tony, all these guys. And they all played the progressive jazz series from late 50s to late 60s. And I've always loved Red Sparkle and Tangerine Glass. So I found a kit out of New York. It was a retired drummer who was getting rid of his round badge kit. And it was a 20-inch kick, 12, 13, and 14-inch toms. And then I found a White Marine Pearl 14x4 Max Roach snare from 1958. And I was actually going to strip the wrap off it, but then I decided I probably shouldn't wreck history, and I should probably keep it as is.
Yeah.
But we restored that whole kit basically to factory as close as we could, sourcing all the original hardware, heads, all that kind of stuff. So I use that one a lot in like any of the jazz content I do with Drumeo. I'll bring that in and we'll do all the vintage miking techniques. And actually just recently, it was finished this week. I found a Project 14x4 progressive jazz snare from 1963.
Right.
And we made that match the Tangerine Glass of that kit. So yeah, those are my two personal kits. I'm super spoiled and I just love playing great sounding drums. And then at the studio, we have a USA Custom in black Nitron. It's kind of like a half shell bank right now, and I believe next year we're going to finish that out. Because with the videos that we do, it's different size bass drums, 2 bass drums, 4 toms, 2 toms, concert toms. It's always different configurations depending on if you're filming something on Stuart Copeland versus Tommy Lee versus Elvin Jones. So needing those sizes to kind of replicate whatever those setups were. So yeah, I'm super spoiled when it comes to drums, but I guess that's the beauty of working in the Drumeo world. So
every video, especially watching the most recent Nic and Phil Collins videos, man.
Yes.
Seeing the black kit, Phil's kit, and then the white concert tom kit. And as I was talking to you later last week, saying, man, I just watched this video, watching Nic play them and listen to how unbelievable those drums are. Those Drumeo's drums, the white kit?
Funny enough, that's actually, we borrowed that kit from a drummer on Vancouver Island. So
Wow.
Vancouver's about an hour away from our studio, and then a ferry ride over to Victoria. He's a huge Phil Collins fan, and he has the replica kit that Nic basically used. Nic was using, I think it was a gray nitron finish. This one's a white
Right.
nitron, but yeah, it just happens to be that he's local. So
That's
it was
crazy.
gonna.
Who's the drummer?
His name is John Baglow. I think he's just a hobbyist, but he has the full kit. It was just going to be insanely expensive to ship Nic's Genesis rig up to Canada. It's especially post COVID, it's an absolute nightmare to ship gear, as you probably know. But yeah, like amazing kit, and enough that I actually added 2 concert toms to my broadcaster order. So
right.
Just an 8 and a 10.
I'd love for the ABBA show to have, because that's what they had back in the 70s. They played
Totally.
They played big drum kits, so it would be, I think it'd be a good addition. Can you tell my wife that you highly recommend that?
Yeah, I'll send her an email.
Wow, that's unbelievable. Now, man, oh man, what about snare drums? Anything else that you're keeping from us here that you have? Yes.
Yeah, there's a lot. So with the broadcasters, I'm using a 14 by 5.5 and 14 by 8. I use those all the time. My all-time favorite is my 14 by 6.5 USA, which we actually somehow the lacquer finish got damaged, so we actually rewrapped it to match the tangerine glass, which I absolutely love. It's like a modern version of the USA's with the vintage kit, all in the identical finish. So yeah, that's probably my favorite snare. Outside of that, I'm a bit of a collector of vintage vintage snares. So I've got, like I mentioned, 2 14 by 4s, one 1958 in white marine pearl, 63 in tangerine glass that's been restored. I have a 1957 white marine pearl with the lugs that just clip over the edge. It's like a single flange tube.
Yep.
That one, it doesn't hold tuning or the strainer very well, but it does have a sound that's like, if that's what I want to go for, I'll bring that one out. I've got a 63 Dixieland in blue sparkle, a 64 Dixieland in burgundy sparkle, a 14 by 5 chrome over brass, 1965, I believe. I feel like I should have pictures for all of these.
That's good. I know what they are. Man, that's incredible.
Yeah. And then a 13 by 7 Brooklyn chrome over steel.
Yeah. What do you think of that drum?
I don't use it too often. I've never been huge on the 13s. I've had a few over the years, but I wanted one that just had a bit more body to it. So 13 by 7, you're gonna get that from it. And then the last one, which I'm super stoked for, is with the broadcaster drums that are coming. I've got a 14 by 6.5 Bell Bronze, which I'm quite stoked to try out. So
the Bell Bronze,
or sorry, the Bell Brass.
The Bell Brass. Okay.
Yeah.
So this guy, the little Bell Brass.
Oh, you have on yours?
I do have a Bell Brass with the.
Oh, nice.
You can see that. There we are. Yes.
Yeah, you don't even have to sell me on it. I'm ready to go.
It's a great drum, and it does so many things. I think it was Victor and Drizzo when we saw him with Alanis Morissette, and he said that he uses that and the Mike Johnston drum. You're moving around.
Oh, nice.
I'm sorry. And he says those are the 2 drums that he uses most in the studio. And for everything, I'm still going to be going back here. Here we go. We're going to have to follow the camera. But yeah, nothing wrong with the Bell Brass. Man, oh man.
Yeah, I have a bit of a problem, but if you ever come to the Drumeo studio, you'll see that all of us have problems because there's like 80 kits, like over 100 snares. It's just, yeah. But for all the artists that we bring in, we do need it because you might have a Yamaha artist who comes in and here's 5 options or 10 options. Here's a Gretsch artist. Here's 4 or 5 that we have. Plus, there's lots of stuff locally that either we own personally or there's other drummers who collect in the area. There's, yeah, there's always options around. So
That is phenomenal. Now, I imagine that Drumeo takes up a good part of your life and a good part of your playing career. Before we even get into that, do you actually play out with artists and bands and things? Do you have time to do that?
I do. So the way I look at Drumeo is like that for me, that's my primary gig, I guess.
Sure.
Uh, where other drummers they'll teach full time or they'll play full time. For me, the Drumeo thing is kind of a mix of both, where I'm producing a lot of the time, I'm filming as the artist a lot of the time. Uh, but even outside of studio hours, that's a lot what's going on in my head, what I'm practicing, what I'm working on. Outside, I'll do things here and there. We're about an hour from Vancouver, so every once in a while, I'll go in and do a session or do some live stuff. Churches in the local area. There's lots of like holiday stuff that I do, but no like main bands or anything that I'm in right now. I had some stuff before COVID, and that totally wrecked anything that was going on with that. But it was kind of a weird thing because I did my degree, studied jazz and pop music in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, and graduated, came on right to Drumeo full time, and then the pandemic happened. So I didn't even have a chance to get kind of accustomed to the scene out here. And
Right.
even now, things are only starting to open back up. So, yeah, that is one of my like personal goals. Is I'm over the moon with what's happening personally through Drumeo and with all the opportunities that are happening here within the company. But personally, like that is one area I want to develop more because I do miss it. When I was in school, I would play all the time, whether it was playing gigs or just with other musicians in their basements, in classrooms, at venues, whatever.
Right.
I do miss that aspect of it, but there's always a trade-off, right? There's never the perfect situation where you're doing everything you want. There's always that one other thing that you wish you were doing, but pros and cons, right?
Absolutely. And if it's providing an income for you and making you happy, I mean, things are going to transition for you at some point. And you're a young enough guy that, man, 25 years old, just turned 25, and
Yeah.
you have done so much already. A lot of doors are going to open for you, which is wonderful. And when the time is right, things are definitely going to happen. People are going to know who you are, and they kind of have an idea as that you're a nice guy, that you can really play, and you've got good gear.
You can.
So that is
Yeah,
phenomenal. So wow.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm excited for your future for sure. So apparently you played piano for 6 years before you found out the drums were much more fun. And
You've done your research.
yeah, I watched a great chat with you. And it's neat. And I mean, so did you find that piano helped you? Of course it did, but how did it help you
Yeah.
as a professional drummer?
Yeah, that's a great question. When I was a kid, I hated playing piano. Hated everything to do with it. Ask my parents, they'll tell you the same thing.
I have.
So, oh, wonderful. So I remember I was taking piano lessons probably 4 or 5 years, and that was the only kind of music I was doing. But I always wanted to play. My parents would ask me like, "What else, if anything, would you want to play? Other instruments, whatever." And my dad was really into like 80s rock music, Van Halen, Bon Jovi, Def Leppard, all that kind of stuff. That's what I grew up on. And we would listen to records on the way to school, and it's like, man, what's going on in like the drums? Like that sounds like the coolest thing. I wasn't even watching drum videos at that point. It was just hearing them on the albums. Like, man, that sounds like a lot of fun. So the deal was that I could get a drum set, but I had to take lessons. That was the only option. And I had to take piano lessons and drum lessons at the same time. So like, all right, let's do it. So in terms of how piano helped, I would say like theory for sure, note values, just in general, like being able to read sheet music. That's been big for me. growing up, through school, even now with Drumeo. That's a big part of what we do, and it's a big part of why I'm able to do the job I'm doing. That all started with piano. And then as I got older, I maybe didn't realize this at the beginning, but understanding phrasing and how harmony moves, and how you might be accenting something in a chord line or in a riff with your like cymbal shots or something, but you only are doing that because you understand the 4 8-bar phrase or the structure of the music. And that really clicked for me when I was like learning standards at school, playing jazz, and really having to listen for what is that bass line and how is the harmony moving through the sections, how is the A section different from the B section. And then I'm like, man, this all started with learning piano and being able to hear that kind of stuff, and further developing that in school. But and playing a lot of marimba even in school, and having to play that with mallets, it totally affected the way I play drums. So I hated it at the time, but I'm very glad I did it.
I hear that so often. I have a piano sitting right here, and
Nice.
with a few students, I'll teach them. I play piano, basic piano, but it definitely has helped me as well. But I like to have the students. I'll play some piano, and sometimes they will play along, or they look over at it and they want to know about it, and they love the sounds that, because it's such a different. It's still a percussive instrument, but a beautiful melodic instrument that, for all the reasons that you spoke about, the phrasing and understanding where you are in a tune, and understanding the difference between the sections of the song, and what the chords will maybe make you feel, just the different emotions, all that. I remember when I studied with Jim Blackley, he was adamant. He says, son, you need to study piano. You have to do that, son. And I started at Ontario College of Percussion, did drums and piano. And super glad I did, but I didn't like it. Oh, the reading was painful. But man, so glad I do. That's awesome. Now, do you write your own any material? Does any melodies come into your head, or any phrases, anything like that?
I wouldn't call myself a writer. Like before COVID, me and a friend of mine had written probably about 8 tunes that we were going to do for an EP. Nothing has happened with that, but I would say, like, rhythmically, like, there's lots of stuff that comes to mind, but I don't consider myself like a composer in terms of melody. And it would be like, I look at drummers like Mark Juliana. He's like one of my heroes, and what he does with his jazz quartet. And to me, that's the peak of like finding a way to link your songwriting as a drummer with what you're actually doing on the kit. I just think that's so inspiring. And there's so many examples of drummers who do that. But yeah, I wouldn't consider myself a writer at this point.
Nice. That, who knows what will happen down the road.
You never know.
And it's good to have that ability. If you write some tunes. Once in a while, I get inspired and hear a melody, and I'm like, I've got to play this. I've got some iPhone video.
Record it, write it down.
Because you forget it. You absolutely do forget it. That's really cool. Let's talk about Drumeo. I've been telling some people that you and I were going to be chatting, and people are like, "Oh, that's the guy with the glasses. That's like, I see he played 175 Rush tunes," and been telling my students about Drumeo. So you work for them, and for those of people who may not know what Drumeo is, can you talk about it and discuss what is Drumeo and what is your role there?
Yeah, that's a loaded question. I love it. So Drumeo, the name stands for Drum Education Online.
Cool. I didn't know
right
that.
In the
That's
name.
Awesome.
We started Jared Falk started the company in, I think it was like around 2003. He started making videos at home. I think there's even some he filmed in a barn, and he would sell downloads on eBay back when that was a big thing. Then the market shifted and it turned into DVDs. And then we did a bunch of training packs. We did like the drumming system, jazz drumming system, the Cobus method, all that kind of stuff. Then the market shifted again. And in 2012, we shifted to an online platform. We called it our members area at the time. And I wasn't part of the company at this point, but this was streaming 7 days a week, bringing in local instructors to teach lessons. And because this was like a totally new thing, teaching drums online, especially
Right.
live streaming, uh, and then posting a lot of that stuff on YouTube to get brand awareness and to build trust in the market. And then from there, I mean, we're still in the streaming world. It's just progressed exponentially since 2012.
Crazy.
So what we do is, so we have a whole kind of membership platform, and our pillars of what we do are coaches, method, and songs. So we have a method, which is basically what you would expect. I think it's like 500 videos, and it's taught by Larnell Lewis, Sarah Thawer, Mark Kelso, Aaron Edgar, Dave, Jared, myself, Glenn Sobel, bunch of artists that we've brought in to teach pretty much what they're best at. You don't really want to learn Latin from me. You want to learn it from Daphnis Prieto, or you want to learn funk and gospel from Larnell, not just someone off the street. So
Sure.
method, that's a core thing. Coaches, we bring in or try to bring in the best drummers in the world to teach what they're best at, to do those YouTube live lessons. Those are often the ones where I'll sit beside them and interview and host, and really just get as much information out of these legends as possible so that everyone watching can actually take something from these people that they've looked up to their whole lives, myself included. I look at that as sometimes when I'm sitting in the hosting seat and beside one of my heroes like Simon Phillip, it's like, okay, we've got an hour.
Right.
I need to ask the questions that the drum community needs to know the answer to, but also I don't want to just geek out for an hour on like what I want to know. And then we do exclusive courses with all of these drummers. We did a course with Simon Phillips on, it's called Elevate Your Drum Sound, and he talks all about how he gets the sound he gets. We did a soloing course with Steve Smith, big band drumming with Grayson, part writing and like drum composition with Hannah Welton. So all these specialties, and we bring them in and do exclusive courses. And then the third pillar is songs. So we have, right now, we have like 5,000 note for note song transcriptions in Drumeo. Bunch of ones that I did in school, Max Roach, Elvin Jones, Art Blakey, all the way to Tool and Rush and Foo Fighters. And those are all done by real transcribers from around the world. I think there's like 5 or 6 sets of eyes on each one before they go live. And that's all synced to sheet music, so you can play along and learn all the music. But that's kind of the content side of what we do. And then obviously there's 30,000 drummers in there who are supporting each other and setting goals and all that kind of stuff. So
wow,
yeah, it's 30,000 as of, or 32,000 as of now. Yeah, there's a lot of drummers. So
wow,
in a nutshell, a little bit about what we do. A lot of people think it's just their YouTube channel, but that's just kind of the public facing. Here's a little bit of eye candy and a little bit of like value that you can get from these videos. But the goal is that we want you to be a part of the community and actually be a part of what's happening. So
I knew that it was huge. And one of the things I wrote for you was, I'm going to read it off here so that I don't miss it. I think Jared was smart to begin the online education when he did, but most of us didn't think, because I was an in-person teacher for a long time, have done online teaching like this way, are still archaic compared to what you guys do, but it's absolutely unbelievable. I love teaching online. I just finished an online lesson before we went, totally. We started chatting, and I didn't think that it was good, but I was definitely wrong. So we didn't think that it would be a good alternative to in-person lessons, but it is, plus the content, plus everything else that you guys have. I don't think that Jared and everybody else there realized it was going to be as huge as it has become. So do you think that it was it a natural progression in the evolution in what he was doing at the time, or calculated, having predicted and looking at trends, or maybe a bit of both?
Yeah, I know Jared does. He looks at trends and he's very in tune with what's happening, but I don't think anyone could fully predict like exactly we're going to abandon physical media and go to streaming. I'm like, sure, you could see that in some companies. This was before my time, right? I was probably like 10 years old when this was happening. But yeah, I wouldn't say it's calculated, because the world changes and a lot of the time you have to react to what happens. But um, I'm certain that there was research that was done that you
Sure.
could see something shifting in other industries. But yeah, I think there's always an element of chance as to what happens. You roll the dice and it turns out that the world abandoned DVDs and went to Blu-ray, and then abandoned that and went to 4K or whatever. So
Incredible. Well,
yeah,
regardless, like congratulations to everybody there and on producing great content and having. I watch the Simon thing. I don't subscribe, but I'm thinking, man, that might actually be a pretty good thing. So, as per cost, if someone was interested in looking at joining, or what kind of cost is this?
I think what we've been at for quite a few years now, I think it's around $30 a month, which is about 197 per year. I know there's some changes coming in early 2023 because now we have Guitario and Singio and Piano, and we're in the midst of kind of merging a lot of those platforms into our umbrella company, which is called Musora, which is kind of all-encompassing music education. But that's what it's been at for the last number of years.
That's cheap, compared
Yeah.
to what you can get in other online sources. People are looking at, should I do the drum channel? Should I do, Drumeo, or should I just go and see Neil and Aurelia once a week? So
Yeah. Well, the thing we deal with all the time too is, I hate it when people always say like, "Oh, online lessons is replacing in-person lessons," and vice versa. It's everyone can coexist, and we need each other to make this thing keep turning. I teach privately, and I use Drumeo resources with my private students. And there's certain times where we're going to go through Drumeo lessons together, but when you come to your lesson, I'm actually going to like adjust your grip for you and show you where your pinky needs to go and what your fulcrum needs to look like. To me, it's never been a private lessons or Drumeo. It's like, even with my private teachers when I was younger, this was before Drumeo even existed. Like, I would find YouTube lessons, and we would, together with my teacher, we'd go over what they're talking about in that video, and he'd transcribe some stuff for me. And to me, it's always kind of been like, everything is good. So that's kind of where I'm at.
I watched the Tommy Igo YouTube chat a couple weeks ago, where he talks about, if the teachers do not upgrade their skills and get in this century or in this decade or in this year constantly, then you're going to be a dinosaur. And we need to be cognizant of new and better teaching methods, not just rehashing the stuff. And he said this, the stuff that we were taught and how we learned. It's like, wow. And that is really mind-blowing. And for sure, as an educator, and a lot of really great educators, we need to be aware of, I'm always looking for new things to use, some new play along, some new teaching methods, new. I just love mixing it up because it's fun and it's upgrading your skills. So
yeah, and even in terms of like the way we teach and the way the world has changed in the last number of years, attention spans are. I just look at YouTube Shorts, TikTok, Instagram Reels. That didn't exist 3 years ago or whatever. Long form content, even on YouTube, used to be, that was the thing. That's what you would post on YouTube. And there still is a market for that. But the way the market has shifted is that we're in short form content now. So how can we teach what we need to teach in half the amount of time, where the student is super excited, they're having a good time, and they're walking away with the result that they want and need to see? And that's where, like, for me, like, coming up with lessons and all these things is, how can I do this in a way that maybe this topic has been taught in such a boring, archaic way for the last 50 years. For example, I mean, I love all kinds of music, but I love jazz. I'm not an amazing jazz drummer, but I'm fascinated by the history. And I think what those drummers did was so important, and for everything we do today. And so I look at a guy like Elvin Jones, and I remember through university, after university, I was looking for, I just want something current with modern like notation and something I can just go to and learn quickly. Like, how do I play some of these grooves and some of his vocabulary? And there was just nothing on there. So for me, I almost take it upon myself to, how can I make a video on a topic that's being lost in the modern education world, because everyone wants to learn Joey Jordison, Taylor Hawkins, Neil Peart, which is great. I love that stuff. But how do we modernize some of these drummers who are being lost to history in a way that's as fun as watching a Metallica video? So those are some of the things that are like going through my head when I'm planning content. And you film an Elvin Jones video in a well-lit studio with modern notation. You relate it to some of the rock drummers that the viewers are probably listening to. So yeah, I just think a lot of times education needs a bit of a facelift, and it might be the same material, just reimagined in a different way.
100%. I used your Elvin Jones lesson in here sometime
awesome.
last year with a student, and it's exactly for those reasons. You know, before I forget, have you ever considered having Joe Farnsworth on the show?
I haven't.
That would be
great, though.
He would be the man. He would be certainly. You
should send me his contact.
For sure. He's a Facebook friend, and nice. I'm sure Joe would love, and he carries that torch, man, of that. He's the same age as me. He's mid-50s. But an accomplished and a great teacher, man. He would be great. So we can connect, and you guys can chat. But I just thought that would be really cool, because he is an authority on that for sure.
Yeah.
See, that is amazing. That's exactly some of the things that I thought of. I don't have any video editing skills. I barely have recording.
Me neither.
Skills. And that's great that you have. The only help that I get for this show is through Nicholas Lucero and his team, who do some of the promo videos and things like that for me, and some of the art and stuff. But I'm slowly learning how to edit videos, but it'll be a long time before. Your content looks so good and sounds so good. It's probably the best that I've seen, and it's probably the best out there, and you guys work your tails off for that, and it's appreciated for sure.
I wish I could take the credit for it, but there's I work in a room just over there and outside of the studio, and Ross, Dylan, Colin are editors, and then we have a bunch of audio engineers who they go through those Logic sessions and with a fine-tooth comb, and it's just the quality that everyone puts into their craft is just through the roof. So for me, as a creator of these types of videos and working with these artists, it just makes me want to dig deeper, do more research, and plan a better video, because they're going to put the same amount of time into we can film stuff, but if it's not edited well, and if it doesn't sound well, no one's going to care about it. So it's just a really inspiring team to be a part of.
It's incredible. Or maybe even Anthony McKelly, your buddy and my buddy Anthony McKelly. He's another monster jazz drummer. Oh man. And the most humble guy, right? We had our hang a month ago. And he's funny. He's so funny.
Yeah.
He's a character. And he texts me out of the blue. Hey, I haven't heard from you for a while. You doing good?
Yeah. So, tell me what's going on.
Right. Yeah. He's a sweetheart of a guy. So as content director at Drumeo, I know it's amazing. You and I have a lot of similarities, from the Neil Peart thing and the Rush thing to the jazz thing. I had a progressive jazz kit, a Starlight Sparkle kit let's not talk about that. It breaks my heart.
Yeah, we'll let that one go.
But where do these ideas for new content come from you? Do they come from a collaboration with Jared or other people, or what is entailed in your job description? So twofold. So where do you get the idea for content, and what is your job description as the content director?
Yeah. So I guess I'll start with what my job is. It's every day is a bit different. I would say, so content, there's two kind of categories to this. There's all the public facing content you see on YouTube, stuff like that. And then there's all of our membership platform content. So workouts, transcriptions, resources, stuff like that. So I kind of oversee all of that stuff with a team of content specialists, content manager who deals with logistics. And that can entail anything from, so a piece of content could be 30-day drummer with Domino Sant'Antonio, which was a 30 video pack that we did for brand new drummers, which was public facing, or it could be next week Tommy Aldridge is in the studio.
Oh,
so I'm super stoked.
Awesome.
He's one of my favorites. So for something like that, it's flights, hotels, planning the content. What songs is Tommy going to play to? What are the songs that are going to connect with our public audience versus our membership demographic? A lot of research involved in what has Tommy done already that we'd want to revamp, or it could be done better, or what has he not done yet that the drum world needs to see or hear. So we have a bunch of different content types that we do. We do our YouTube format of like a 10-minute video on a single topic. We do our 1-hour live lesson interviews. We do our weekly drum department show, which we do every Monday. So Tommy's going to be on that, just hanging out, just talking about stories on Monday. So that's kind of what the job entails. Lots of planning with artists. So before Tommy comes out, I've had 3 calls with him, just going back and forth on songs. Like, should we do this Aussie song? And he's like, well, no, Randy Rhoads hated that song, so I don't want to do this. But this one is super sick, so we should do this song. And then balancing, okay, is that song going to connect with our audience? Yes or no? And where's the balance of what we can do and what we won't do? So lots of planning meetings, and then lots of outreach and stuff too. So, I mean, there's a million drummers out there who I want to have in the studio to film, but everyone says, get this drummer, get this drummer.
Of course, right.
And there's always this line of like, who's going to connect with the audience and actually inspire more people to start playing drums, hopefully become Drumeo members too, and become part of a community. And then there's also a somewhat selfish aspect of, I want to have this drummer, we need to have this drummer out. But in general, it's like, who's going to connect with the audience and who do we need to have out now? Who's long overdue? Then scheduling and availability and all that kind of stuff, and pricing. And so, yeah, that's kind of a little bit about the job. Every day's different. Meetings, filming, producing, running the team. As for content ideas, like I mentioned a little bit there, I do a lot of research. I love digging into projects. We might talk about the Phil Collins thing, but that was like 6 months of research on what to cover in that project. When an artist comes out, like Tommy, like I mentioned, I often poll on my social media and get as many comments as possible. What are the songs that keep coming up over and over? Because the one thing I've learned is there's someone out there who's a bigger fan than you. And those are the people whose voices are very important. I'm not a master of anything, but there's someone out there who's a bigger Neil Peart fan, a bigger Tommy Aldridge fan, Phil Collins fan. And those are the people that I really value their input, because I mean, I'm 25. You've got people who have been listening to this music for longer than I've been alive.
Sure.
So taking advantage of that kind of stuff. But we have a bunch of formats that we use that we know work really well. Like X drummer plays or hears this song for the first time.
Yeah.
Dennis Chambers playing Tool. That element of vulnerability with one of your heroes, a legendary drummer, like you can't beat that. That's just such an amazing way to get inside the mind of someone that you've never been able to look at like that. So yeah, those are like a few ways, but we do full outlines for our videos. There's structures and elements that we have to put into every video. And I do a lot of quality control on making sure that when I'm producing a session, every single thing gets filmed with potential alternate versions of certain sections and things like that. But yeah, everything's a little bit different because people are different, artists are different, music is different, and you got to be able to jump between jazz, funk, metal, rock, and hopefully know what you're talking about. So it keeps me on my toes.
I remember thinking, man, does Brandon ever sleep? Does he leave
I
Drumeo?
do.
Like, which is crazy. And then I'm thinking, having my little live stream show here, I do sometimes quite a lot of research, but
Hmm.
maybe 1/100th of the preparation that you need to do, because I'm thinking that would be similar to me learning another tribute show or another kind of show, and
Yeah.
really getting inside and learning that stuff. But learning all of those Rush tunes and filming them, I do have to ask you,
Yeah.
does it sometimes take a bunch of takes before you get something that you're absolutely happy with?
Oh,
Or are you pretty prepared?
depending on what it is. Like, so that video, I'm working on another every song video, and there's
Oh,
188 songs in
oh,
the next. So
come
I
on.
won't say what band, but
Oh,
um, so it depends on the video. So for example, when I did The Genius of Danny Carey, um, there was the groove from Rosetta Stone, which
right.
is the hardest drum groove I've ever learned in my life. 5/16 on the kicks, Swiss triplets in 3/4 with the hands, and then like a 4-against-3 feel with the right hand. It's just ridiculous. And that one, I learned I could play it up to tempo. It was fine. But having to play it slow, I think I maybe did 25 takes trying to get it where everything actually sounded and felt good. And like honestly, there's times where I'll record something and I'll see it in the edit, and I'm so unhappy with it that I'll pull it, and I'll just say, put the YouTube video there. Like I don't want to even have that in there. And it's not to say, I mean, I'm a full advocate for transparency, vulnerability on camera, because I think
Sure.
that's something I try to put forth in the videos that we do at Drumeo. Is we're all humans, we're all drummers. We learn things. Like Dennis Chambers learns a song for the first time, he doesn't magically know it.
Right.
So like I did a video where I learned a Meshuggah song in 2 weeks, and I'm not super happy with the final performance, but that's where it was at after 2 weeks, and you're getting the honest version of where it was at. Because I'm a student like everyone else. But the Rush video, that one, I recorded it, I did it in one take, and I did about probably 5 full passes, like 25-minute passes of it. And there were some that were better than others. But that one was learned as one single piece. So I also, with that one, I wanted to come in and be like, I just want to do this in one take and have it be as authentic as possible. I don't love doing like every single edit every 3 songs or something. It's more
Right.
work for production teams, which I become super cognizant of because they work right behind me, and I know when they complain about edits.
What a jerk.
So
Oh,
I try to
man.
be. I'll be in the warehouse every night just shedding whatever is for the next upcoming video. That's where I'm going right after this. So yeah,
So,
it's always
so you don't sleep. So you don't sleep.
I do sleep a lot more than I used to. But
That's
I love it,
incredible.
man. That's what makes it as great as it is if you really love what you do.
Yeah.
And I know they say it doesn't feel like work. It is a lot of work and it's hard work. But if you love what you're doing, it's just so rewarding. And then to see what you do, the art you create, connect with people on the other end and actually have that impact them in some way.
Hmm.
Uh, that's what it's all about. Music, education, art. That's yeah. That's the real deal.
And you have grown as a player exponentially over the last few years. That's for sure. Working
Thank
as hard as, but it's serious. Okay. I'm a massive Rush fan. I was good friends with Don George, Neil's first
you.
drum teacher. I have 2 of books that Don wrote, that he gave to me before he passed away. They passed away 8 days apart.
Oh wow.
And Don's material, I remember working on it in 2019, and I got a couple pages in, and I'm like, this is not easy stuff. But what I found out about it found while I was playing it is it sounds like Neil.
Mm,
Mind you, Neil was 13. Don was only 18 or so. And I don't really know if he showed him. I'm pretty sure he did. He showed and taught a lot of the similar concepts. Of course, they did. They did rudiments and they did snare pieces and things like that. But
yeah.
he was very much into four-limbed playing. It's pretty neat. I should kind of maybe share some of that material with you. It's wild.
Yeah.
One of the things Don asked me before he passed away, he said he would love to have his books published. So I may do a self-publish. I may do something, but I don't know. But the material is very Neil-like, and it's really good. So
Right.
I dig it. But I'm so happy that you're a Rush fan, and for me, it was a bit of a selfish thing, like watching how you played certain fills, Time Stands Still, watching how you played some of the parts in it, because I could never quite tell. I'm like, that's how you do it. And the Genesis stuff too. Some of the fill things, I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
So we are just under 10 minutes or so. Let's just kind of sort of wind things down. We're having maybe some highlights. I want to talk about the Phil and Nic
Yeah.
interview. I had Nic on my show here, I don't know, a year and a
Yes.
half ago, and he was an absolute sweetheart of a guy. And once in
Yeah.
a while I'll email him and he mails me back, and he's funny, but
Oh
great
yeah.
player and such a great young man. What was the Phil experience like for you?
Man, that was probably like the highlight of my life.
Yeah,
As like a
I bet.
huge Phil Collins fan, Genesis fan. I grew up on the self-titled 1983 record, Home by the Sea,
Yeah.
Silver Rainbow, all that kind of stuff. And so this was about, I would say 6, 7, 8 months in the making. Um, I started talking with Nic right after the Rush video, actually. We
Okay.
started exchanging messages because he's a Rush fan and has the concert toms. Funny enough, he has the concert toms because of Taylor Hawkins, not because of his dad.
Of course.
Funny enough. Um, so yeah, this all kind of happened, and Phil agreed to do it, which was insane to me. We didn't go through any management. It was just me to Nic to Phil,
Hey,
and
Dad.
pretty much, which I was like, is this real?
Perfect.
Is this actually happening? Because
Oh,
we had
oh
tried to go through management years ago, but just nothing ever happened.
no.
He's like untouchable, right? Um, so yeah, we got the signed contract back, and I guess he was really excited because no one had ever taken the time to talk to him in depth about just his drumming, which is like for Drumeo and for myself, like that's what we want to know, right? Like you've talked about being a celebrity and being a world famous vocalist, but no one's ever talked to him about Los Endos and the musical box and all these Genesis classics and stuff. So we went out there to Switzerland. We rented this chateau on Lake Geneva, and me and Nic were together on the Tuesday and the Wednesday, and we unboxed the Way We Walk tour kit from 1992, and we set it all up with Phil's text instructions, and we played it and got some drone shots and all this stuff. Then on Wednesday, I did probably a 2-3 hour interview with Nic, all like going deep, talking about his childhood with what's it like with Phil being your dad and having to carry that weight, touring with Genesis and Phil, going through LPs. I had a photo of every kit that Phil pretty much ever played from 1971 up to 2000. And so got Nic to kind of react to those and see what he noticed. And then Nic gave us a bunch of old home footage of
Oh,
him and Phil and lots of his brother Simon too, of them all playing drums together. And I think it's like 90 minutes of material of just like family footage that Phil would put together himself. There's like these graphics on screen and stuff, but yeah, just home videos. And then on Thursday, Phil showed up, and of course we're all nervous, right? Like he's one of my heroes. But the thing I've noticed over the last year working with legendary drummers, Simon and Steve and all these guys, is like, we're all just drummers. That's the one thing that links all of us together. Is doesn't matter how famous you are, what you played on, or whatever. We all play drums. So I remember the gates to the chateau opened, and Phil, I guess he hadn't left his place in a few months, so this was one of his first outings in a while. And he's like, he comes in the gate and he's just waving and like smiling, super excited. And we go up, and we did probably like 15, 20 hours of interviews over 2 days. And we went through the whole career, and we got his thoughts and things he liked and didn't like. And we talked about his drum kits and tours and had lunch together. And yeah, man, we showed him the kit, which was all set up. I did a 2-hour interview one-on-one with him, which was pretty surreal. And
wow.
Yeah, it's hard to explain. Just someone who, I guess the last one of the things I'll say is Phil hadn't picked up drumsticks in years, and we had a bunch of his sticks there ready to go. And we were doing some photos before the one-on-one interview, and I'll try to keep this quick because I know we're trying to stay under an hour. But we did some photos with him holding the sticks, and then we were going to launch into the one-on-one, and he's still holding the sticks. And for the 2-hour session, the whole time, he's just like holding the sticks in his hands, and he'd pause sometimes and just look down at the drumsticks. And it was like one of the most moving things like I've ever experienced. Someone who's been playing since they were 5 years old, who hasn't been able to play for over a decade, to hold your tools in your hand once more, and you could just like see what was going on in his head. It was pretty amazing. So yeah, well, I'm super stoked to dive into that footage. There might be a few other things we're going to be filming around that, but it should be pretty amazing. So,
is any of this stuff available now on Drumeo? Any of the nothing?
Nothing yet. We filmed. It'll go out along with that release. There'll be a public piece that goes out with Nick and Phil, but Nick recorded like 40 Genesis playthroughs with lessons. So to any Genesis and Phil Collins fans out there, there'll be a massive drop of that stuff coming. I'm ballparking next year, but it depends on where this goes. So it's going to be pretty crazy. So
man,
yeah,
I'm telling you, we could definitely have another couple of hours, but
we'll have to.
Man, well, I would love to do a part 2 at some point. And
definitely.
Thank you so much. It's really great to finally actually.
I know, it's about time.
Chat with, it is about time. I remember before you were signed on as a Gretsch artist. I'm like, I'd like to have you on. You go, but I'm not a Gretsch artist. I go, I don't care. It's my show. So. But finally, glad to meet you, and thank you for sharing. And thank you for doing everything that you do there, man. It makes me really want to join and be a member now, and just kind of check things out and grow as a player, and maybe stimulate myself and grow some more. And I will put you in touch with Joe Farnsworth, and man.
Any other maybe Steve Ferroni too.
Okay. Oh man, Steve would be. Imagine
we'll have to chat.
Breaking down some of Steve's iconic grooves. That would just be silly.
That'd be great, man. Oh, get a nice kit in the studio.
Oh, you would love.
That'd be awesome.
Such a sweetheart. So, anyway, my friend, thank you so much. I appreciate this. So, this has been an incredible experience for me, and all the best to you in the future. And we will chat soon.
Thanks so much, man. Thanks for having me.
We'll talk soon.